Hello, this is Bonnie Dean from Cheap Left Hand Knits. Today I would like to show you my favorite tubular cast on for an odd number of stitches. I went through a bunch of these working my weekender sweater from Andrea Mowry, and this was the one I liked best. This is the Provisional tubular cast on. For an even number of stitches or working in the round, I like the Italian tubular cast on. I also have a video on that. The benefits of this tubular cast on is that it matches the tubular bind off and it does not roll. It's a lovely cast on where the stitches just seem to be continuous around the edge. In order to start the cast on, we need an overhand knot, with a tail sufficient to weave in, not too tight. We're going to make the light colored yarn the working yarn and the gray yarn the waste yarn. The stitches, I put the light colored yarn over the back and the waste yarn in the front. And I'm going to take the needle below the waste yarn and above the working yarn and put a loop on the needle. That's our first knit stitch. The purl stitch is a yarn over. Knit stitch under the waste yarn, over the top of the working yarn and back to baseline. Purl stitch, yarn over. Under the waste yarn, over the top of the working yarn. And I have made 5 stitches: knit, purl, knit. I've turned this around and I'll show you the 5 stitches that I've made. Purl stitch, knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch, and purl stitch. This is just an extra loop that will fall off at the end. For the first 2 rows of tubular, provisional tubular, you knit the knit stitches and you slip the purl stitches with yarn in front. The sole exception being this first stitch, which needs to be stabilized, and because it is a purl stitch, I'm going to keep those yarns intertwined and purl that stitch. Then everything else is done according to knit the knits and slip the purls with yarn in front. And the last stitch is slipped. And I can take that off. On the way back, the only trick is this is the knit stitch that needs to be worked, and it's loose, but you still work it anyway. So we're going to knit the knit, slip the purl, knit the knit, slip, knit. On the subsequent rows, you just begin one by one ribbing. So this will be purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. The hardest thing about this cast on, in my opinion, is to get the knot out. After the knot is out, then the waste yarn simply pulls right out, and you have your nice edge. And that's all there is to it. Happy knitting.